Hi guys, I'm VikingDog78 and this is the final round of the Aero Racing Group 3 Championship Tier 1. We are racing Lago Maggiore, the East layout for this round. And yeah, let's get straight into qualifying. The first lap was quite decent, not my best, but still a decent banker. I had hopes heading into this round that I could fight for a win on pure pace because it's a track that suits the Renault kind of quite nicely, but there was also the issue that the tire wear is quite high, and that will be a problem later on in the race. First lap is a 17.4, 3/10 of Iggy, who's on a 17.1, which felt like I couldn't really beat. So going into the final and best lap of the session, I was looking to potentially beat Sonic for P2. So going to turn number 1 and 2, you kind of want to maximize the curb, which you can see I slightly missed my apex at turn 2, which will cost me some time. Then through 3 and 4 again, trying to use all of the track width to set up the exit. Here you can go over, and besides the curb you will not get a track limits penalty. My first sector is a 28.9, which is my personal best in the first sector. This corner is very tricky. You want to get that late apex and then just go 100% throttle input as early as possible, avoiding as much sliding as possible. And through here you really want to maximize the use of the curbs and the tarmac, which I do quite nicely. It's a very good second sector, 53.1. I mean, it's not that great time-wise, but it did feel good at the time. But looking at it afterwards, there was a bit of time left on the table. Here, braking just after the 100-meter board, getting on the apex, where you also have the sausage curb, and then 100% throttle once again. I pick a bit of slipstream from Bomber, which helps me. But it's gonna be a 17.3, which is just about not enough to beat Sonic by about 40 thousandths, which means it's going to be P3 for the sprint race. So going into the 15 minutes sprint race for the final round of the season, starting P3, I was looking to capitalize on a good start, potentially gain the position on Sonic and see where we could go from there. At the start, Iggy doesn't get a good start, which allows Sonic to go by immediately and allows me to get alongside. Going into turn 1, I try to get the outside line. Sonic does go a bit deep and he also gets pushed by Iggy. At the same time, I get pushed off by Ben, who was lagging quite a lot, so I just assumed that it was the lag that caused the contact between the two of us. His internet has been quite bad throughout the season, but especially now you can see just how much his car is bouncing around, and this creates a problem because yes, I've lost the position, but now I have to get through once more to get back to P3 because I really want to follow Sonic and Iggy if I want to have a chance at winning this race. But the question is, how do I clear somebody who's lagging this much? You can see through here, I'm genuinely scared of hitting him and potentially getting damage or potentially, spinning out on my own because of, how much he's lagging. Going into the final corner, you will see just how much I close in, and I don't know if it's lag or if it's him braking very early. But he gets on the sausage curb and he just spins out on his own, which allows me to get P3 back. Now I have Cap alongside me, who was able to capitalize on the bad exit that I had because of Ben. I show him the long way around and I managed to defend P3, and now I can focus on trying to catch up to Sonic and Iggy. Or so I thought, because going into turn 5 I messed up the line essentially. And that allowed the Aero to have a good run going into the middle sector. Thankfully, I still had the inside by a tiny bit, and that allowed me to keep the position through here. So now P3, essentially 3 seconds behind Iggy and 1.5 or 8 behind Sonic. This is where the race became hell, because the pace that was set by the three of us was ruthless. This is the fastest lap, 17.1, which I wish I could have gotten in qualifying, but still, We were lapping so fast every lap. I think every lap, one of the three of us was in contention to get the fastest lap. And you can see that on lap 7, Iggy makes a mistake that allows the two of us to close in on him. And at this point, before the race, I was planning on taking a bit easier to save the tires, because you will see that my tires will die out before the end of the race. But I didn't do so because, in a way, I'm still a bit of a kid who believes in miracles, and I was very much hoping that something would happen at the front, so I just pushed as much as possible without thinking about the tires, because I wanted to be here. I wanted to be in this position. I wanted to be with the leaders and see, if something happened, I wanted to be in the position where I could capitalize to get that win. So lap 11, now Sonic has a massive tire advantage on Iggy and a massive one on me as well. So I know he's going to go for the move. My question is he going for a clean move or a not so clean move? And the answer is just in front of me. He goes for this dive, which pushes Iggy off track, and I just lied my way through because I know I have to make this overtake. And then Sonic decides to give Iggy the position back, which, very fair. Like, that's, he messed up the move. That's bad, but he gave back the position, which is good. But now I'm leading the race. I'm shaking at this point. I am legitimately shaking like I've never shaken before in my league racing career, because I have one lap to go and I have a 1 second lead over Sonic. I don't know how I'm gonna keep him behind because I don't have rear tires anymore, but it's 1 minute and 18 seconds where I have to keep him behind. If I can do that, I win the sprint race, and it would be my first proper win of the season, my first win on track. So you can see that Sonic just casually gains half a second through the first sector, and I know he will be there at the end of the lap. So it's about, I cannot take it easy at this point. I have to risk. If I spin out, I spin out. That's it. But if I don't take any risks, I don't win this race. So I'm pushing as hard as possible through every corner. You can just see how hard the car is to drive on that rears, but that's not any news. So he's 3 tenths behind. I know he cannot go for a move through this hash section, so I just take it as slightly more easier to get a good run out of it. He will have a run into the final corner, so I defend the inside immediately here because I want him to go to the outside, and then I take the inside at the last second once again. I brake a bit earlier to force him to have the outside, and then I force him to have the longest run to the line, and I use the better acceleration of the Renault to keep P1, and this was a huge sigh of relief as I finally win a race on track this season. Now on to the 40 minutes feature race for the final round of the season. For the first time I'm gonna be starting last, which happened quite often last season. It didn't happen at all this season, so better late than ever. This start was horrible. Like, the game started me right at the apex of the final corner, but pointing towards the outside, so I had to fix the steering angle. So I was left like 1.2, 1.3 seconds behind, which is not ideal. So my first lap was entirely about, catching up to the guys in front. Obviously, the majority of the grid on mediums to go long and then pit for softs when we will be on lower fuel. I think the Mercedes guys are the only guys who started on softs to try to get to the lead of the group and then and run away. Into the final corner, there's this massive pack of cars that I finally catch up to. These guys are 3 wide, so I managed to get past Diggy. Then I take the slipstream from Sonic, then Bomber, who are side by side. I make it 3 wide, which you wouldn't want to do it, but we keep it clean. We give each other plenty of space. There's another side by side in front of us, people almost spinning out, people getting pushed off. And in all of this, I gain 5 positions by just surviving. I just committed to that move on Bomber and Sonic, and it just worked out, and that's something that hasn't happened this season, and I was hoping that it would at some point. But like having this kind of situation where, there's fighting across the grid and I managed to benefit from it rather than being, on the receiving end of a punt or some fighting that cost me a lot of time. This time I was the guy that was able to get through the pack with minimal time loss. Here Neo goes off. He managed to rejoin safely, but I gained this position as well. And yeah, 5 positions gained. And I got in front of all my rivals on pure pace, bar Philip, who's a new guy who debuted in Spa and is very quick. So I'm thinking he's ideally the last of the very fast guys that I have to overtake before I get to essentially the midfield. I tried to make a move here. It was never going to work. I just made sure that I wasn't going to hit him. But it was worth a try anyway, so I settled in P9 following Philip. Towards the tail end of the lap, I just get caught by a bit of dirty air and understeer, and I ran off the same way that Neo did. But because I saw him running off, I knew how to handle the car, so I managed to save it without very big consequences. And you will see me just waving in the straight to try and clear the car, to try and clean the tires, most importantly, so that I don't lose too much time due to dirty tires. It costed me about 2 seconds, but it's not a big deal. And most importantly, it was a way of understanding, okay, let's calm down, let's settle into this race because it's 40 minutes of racing. There's no need to take this kind of risk so early. Here Van der Speck was pushed off by one of the McLarens, by one of the Mercedes, at the front. So I overtook him, and then there was this big fight in front of me between 3 cars. And this is essentially the final big fight that I have to clear before I move on to the top 4 essentially. So I'm looking to get past Kyle in the Ford. You don't make a move around this corner, so I just settled in behind. He left me the space and I appreciate it, but I'm never going to commit to a move there. But I will try to get the run to go for a move potentially into the final corner. I know I'm very good on the brakes, so I get close, not enough for a move, but he is wide, so I just put my nose on the inside. We will be side by side. He has better straight line speed. I mean, everybody has better straight line speed, but that's besides the point. He covers off the inside here for some reason and brakes very, very early. And that just gives me the invitation to go around the outside. And that's P7 with now Bosnian Knight, who's another new guy to overtake in the Nissan at the end of, at the start, of lap 7. We skipped to lap 8 and Keplero spun off in front of all of us. He was in the leading pack in the softs, so that's an important move because he would have been someone who I would have had to face for the win at the end of the race. So, that's important. Lap 9, Bosnian again breaks very early into 1, so I just go for the move. It's very clean, no risks whatsoever, and that's P4. Following Philip, we skipped to lap 15 because nothing happened. There was this top 4 of cars, CMP in the Nissan, Kerpel and I in the Renault, and Philip in the BMW, who were reasonably close on pace, all of us on mediums. And nothing was happening. We were gradually closing in on each other. I tried to go for the move on Philip, but it doesn't really work out around the outside there. And I settled in behind, knowing that we are all going to pit between this and the following lap. End of lap 17 is the scheduled lap for the pit stop. And let me just say that the pit stop here is stupidly long. The car disappears for a good 15 seconds on one of the shortest straights on the game. But anyway, we pit for softs. I want you to take a look at this. I put 62% of fuel while Philip and Kerpel put 70 and 73. I put fuel for 13 laps of of racing, because I thought the race would end off lap 30, because Iggy told me that the feature was going to be 30 laps unless we were going to be very fast, which we were not. So I refueled for 30 laps. The guys behind me refueled for 31. So when I saw that, I realized that maybe I had to fuel save for the entirety of the final stint, which I did. I started to essentially short shift a bit more than usual in the Renault. Still, the pace was good. 17.1, my fastest lap in this race. Unfortunately, it doesn't stand because Iggy beats it. But yeah, I still had to catch CMP, overtake him, and still save fuel. So that was not ideal, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I would have refueled like 5% more if I knew, and still kept the position on Philip and Kerpel, but that's fine. I know my way around saving some fuel. Start of lap 15, I'm 1 second, 0.1 behind the CMP, and you will see that at the end of the lap it's going to be a lot closer, 0.3 seconds. So I'm just lining up the move into turn 1. You can see it takes a different line, a lot more of an inside line into the final corner. So I just get the run. CMP doesn't really defend the inside here. He actually leaves the inside wide open, so I go down the inside. Again, we give each other just about enough space. We are still side by side into 2. And then I have better traction through here, which gives me the inside for 3, which gives me P1 with 4 or 5 laps to go. And now I have to just focus on running away. And again, I still have some fuel to save. So I will start to use different maps of fuel, as well as lift and coasting through certain corners alongside short shifting. So we get to the end of lap 30, and you will see that by just 2 seconds, I make it to lap 31, which is hilarious because I'm the only guy that will get to do a final lap. Everybody gets to the checker flag and finishes the race now, so I get to do a victory lap. I win the sprint and I win the feature race at Lago Maggiore. I did not expect to, but I'm extremely proud. I just started drifting around, which I'm terrible at. So yeah, considerations on this car now that the season is over. It's bad, like, don't pick it if you have to pick a car for next season, unless the BLP changes it. It has like pure pace, but the rear tire wear is atrocious. The straight line speed is non-existent. So unless the calendar is like brand sets for 8 rounds, do not choose this car. It's very good on traction and acceleration, and through the mid to high speed corners it's very fast, but at the same time it uses the rears a lot to go that fast. So it's a trade that it's not worth, in my opinion. So overall, you're just better off looking at FR cars, or if you want to stay MR, go for like the McLaren or the Porsche. But that's the end of the video and of the season, so I'll probably see you for the Race of Champions next week. So goodbye.